Hello, welcome to Iron Africa here on France 24. I'm Fraser Jackson. Here are the stories making headlines on the continent this evening. It's the end of the road for Morocco's World Cup campaign after France beat them 2-0. The Atlas Lions made it further than any African team in the history of the tournament. The US-Africa summit continues in Washington, with Biden saying the link between his country and the continent is crucial for world success. $55 billion has already been pledged as the US seeks to boost its influence. And Ghana releases its latest inflation figures one day after it announced a $3 billion loan with the International Monetary Fund. At 50%, inflation is standing at a 21-year high. It's good to have you with us. Well, after days of anticipation, it's all over. After a terrific run, Morocco's dreams came to an end as France beat them 2-0. They blew, however, through to the final of the World Cup as they hope to defend their title and become the first back-to-back champions since 1962. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Karim Balde, a football expert who I'm sure you've seen across France 24 a lot over the last few days. Karim, good to see you. It's been an interesting evening here in the France 24 newsroom. Give us a quick summary of the game, if you would.
The problem for Morocco is that they conceded the first goal very early into this game, 5th minute, and it was already 1-0 for France. And from that moment on, we knew that it would be very difficult for Morocco because they conceded only one goal before that game, before that semi-final. They had a good reaction, especially late into the first half and then early into the second half, but they couldn't score. And against France, it's not possible. They scored once, they can do it, and that's what happened 10 minutes before the end of the game. So it's sad for Morocco, but at the end, France deserved to pass through.
And also, France, world champions. They're always going to be hard to beat, but Morocco making it this far through to the stages of the World Cup, the first African team in history to do that.
Yeah.
That's still some incredible accomplishment.
That's an incredible accomplishment for African football. And it's great to see a coach, Walid Regragui, saying, well, that's not because we come from Africa that we can't have any objectives. We can't go further into that competition. And that was the first time ever that an African team went up to the semi-final. That can break some psychological thing to say, okay, we can do it. We can do it. If we have a good tactic, and if we stick on what we know what to do, we can do it. And he said each and every time after winning against Spain, after winning against Portugal, okay, that's good, that's fine, but we can go further. And that's a good mindset, in my opinion, to go far into those competitions.
And how big an achievement is this for an African team generally? They've done something Senegal, Cameroon have never been able to do. Yeah. How big an achievement is it for a team from the continent?
It is big because from now on, other countries, as you say, Senegal, Cameroon, for example, they know that they can do it. Let's remember what said Samuel Eto'o, the head of the Cameroon FA, before the competition. He said, well, Cameroon can win the World Cup. So many people laughed at him. But he said as well that Morocco can go up to the final, so it wasn't quite...
he wasn't far off.
He wasn't far off at the end, yeah. And that's a way to say, okay, we have ambitions and we can share it to the public before the competition. And if we have good infrastructures, which is the case in Morocco, we can go far. We have good formation, we have good players, and we can recruit some Moroccan players playing abroad or coming from other countries such as the Netherlands or Spain or France.
It's going to be important. Well, let's quickly run across to Morocco, where France 24's Sophie Lamothe is standing by. Sophie, obviously a defeat for Morocco is not ideal, but they still must be very proud of their national team.
Yes, it's a defeat, absolutely, but it doesn't really feel like it in the streets of Rabat. There's convoys of cars driving around with honking their horns. There's people waving Moroccan flags everywhere in the streets. People are just expressing how proud they are, and we're actually with some of the supporters who just wanted to express how proud they were, really.
Hello, how are you, everyone? We are so proud of the Moroccan team. Thank you, Moroccan team. We love you so much. Even we lose this game, we win the support of the whole world. We love you, and Line Sarsidna, we love you, Moroccan team.
It's a party here. All right.
Sophie, it looks like an amazing atmosphere
as you can
there.
see, it's a defeat, but it really doesn't feel like it. Everybody's just very proud of their team and just very happy to have made it this far, really. Such an achievement.
And rightfully so. Sophie, enjoy the rest of the evening. It looks like a party atmosphere, whatever happens. Kareem as well, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Well, over the last couple of days, the US has been trying to court African leaders as over 40 heads of state gathered in Washington for a US-Africa summit. It's the first gathering of its type since 2014 during Barack Obama's tenure. His then VP is now in charge and hoping to boost American influence on the continent by pledging billions of dollars in investment over the next few years. Our Washington correspondent Ketavan Gorjestani has been covering Biden's speech for us.
He spoke about this partnership between the U.S. and the African continent, talking about how when Africa succeeds, the U.S. succeeds, and frankly, the whole world succeeds. But more concretely, he announced that the U.S.-Africa Business Forum, which was taking place today on the second day of the summit, actually bore quite a bit of fruit because there were about $15 billion worth of deals made during this Africa Business Forum. Deals that went on everything from cybersecurity to healthcare to infrastructure, and that this was what was going to deepen the ties between the U.S. and the continent. But the president also insisted that the big global challenges of the world right now could not be faced without the help of the African continent, without African voices at the international table. And while he didn't formally announced it, we have been hearing from the Biden administration that the president will support a permanent seat for the African Union at the G20, the same way the president a few months ago said he supported a permanent seat for the African Union at the UN Security Council. And so you're seeing two parts of this partnership between the U.S. and the continent, one that is concrete with economic deals and one that is more diplomatic with a bigger place for African countries at the international table.
Ketavan, thank you for staying across those developments for us. Ketavan Gorjestani there in Washington. Well, also at that summit in Washington is Felix Tshisekedi. DR Congo's president blamed climate change for the devastating floods that are currently affecting vast swathes of his capital, Kinshasa. The official death toll more than doubled overnight, with over 120 people now believed to have been killed after heavy rains triggered landslides and high waters that have affected over 12 million people. The country has now announced 3 days of national mourning. Let's take a listen to the Congolese president.
Since we are gathered here to speak about fighting against climate change, if you will allow me, I'd like to speak first with regret to let you know about the crisis that my country has lived through the first few hours, through the floods and the heavy rains, because of the climate crisis that has caused hundreds of deaths, as well as enormous material damages that could have been avoided if the commitments of the polluting countries would have been held, would have been kept for the past few years.
Well, as we told you last night, Ghana has agreed a $3 billion loan with the International Monetary Fund to help the country steer itself through its ongoing economic crisis. But on Wednesday, Ghana reported its newest inflation figures, and the numbers paint a worrying picture. Clémence Waller has the story.
It was once considered a rock of economic stability and security on the African continent. Today, it battles its worst financial crisis in decades. Ghana is facing more than 50% inflation, growing debt, and a collapse of its currency, the cedi, worth half of what it was last year.
I went to the market today, going to shop for the week, and then I withdrawn 300 cedis thinking I'll get everything I needed. But I couldn't, and I even got nothing for my baby because I had very less money left for me to shop for my baby.
The government has announced a 2.5% increase in VAT and a freeze on public worker hires to help cut costs and hike revenues. The crisis forced the nation's president, Nana Akufo-Addo, to seek help from the IMF, sealing a 3-year, $3 billion loan program earlier this week.
The program will also include reforms to strengthen fiscal transparency and public financial management, improve the management of public enterprises, bolster governance, and tackle structural challenges in the energy and cocoa sectors.
As they wait for the funding to come through, the Ghanaian people hope that things won't get worse before they get better.
Facebook's parent company Meta is being sued in Kenya for $1.6 billion for fueling ethnic violence in Ethiopia. The petitioners accuse the company of allowing vitriol to flourish on its platforms, stoking the fires of the ongoing conflict in Tigray. They're also seeking a further $400 million for similar harm coming from sponsored posts. Our correspondent in Kenya, Vivian Wandera, brings us this update.
The landmark legal case that was filed in Kenya's High Court alleges that Meta promoted hate speech, which led to ethnic conflicts and killings in Ethiopia. The petitioners explained that this was made possible through the utilization of an algorithm that recommended hateful and violent content on Facebook. The case was filed in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, where Meta has a content moderation hub. The petitioners are seeking to stop the algorithm from recommending such content and to also compel Meta to create a $2 billion victims fund. Hate speech has been on the rise in Ethiopia over the years as conflict escalated between Ethiopia's government and the forces in northern Tigray, leading to the death of hundreds of thousands of people. A statement released by Amnesty International, which joined the case as an interested party, stated that one of their staff in the region was targeted as a result of posts made on the social media platform. One of the petitioners also alleged that his father was gunned down outside their home in Ethiopia after receiving several death threats on the platform. The petitioner explained that despite the efforts to have the post taken down, this did not happen until 8 days after his father was murdered. He added that one of the posts was still up on the platform. Though Meta has content moderators who are conversant with main local languages, it is unclear how many of these moderators focus on Ethiopia.
Vivian Wandera for us there in Kenya. Well, that's it for this edition. Stay tuned. There's more news coming up shortly on France 24.
France 24, your economy explained. Liberté, égalité, actualité.